Okay, so first things first, with the deadlift, we want to place our feet directly underneath our hips. Our toes will be facing forwards, and obviously we want to make sure that we're stood center of the barbell, okay? From there, we can move around, okay? So that is very person dependent on what feels more comfortable and which feels more stronger. I personally like to take my toes out ever so slightly, but the textbook would have you go toes forward. So I'd recommend starting with that and then adjusting as you mean to go on. I wouldn't necessarily look to move much wider than hip width, but again, if it feels comfortable, you get in a better position, then it is 100% worthwhile. So once we have our feet in the correct position, the next thing is where we're going to place our hands. Now our hands want to go straight down in line with the shoulders. So I want to make sure they go on the outside of the legs so that when I bend at the hip and waist, I'm coming straight down. What I'm personally aiming for is to get my index finger right round where the knurling starts. Now that might be with a double overhand grip or a mixed grip. If I'm going, sorry, a hook grip. If I'm going mixed grip, however, I would go pinky on the start of the knurling and then I would start my deadlift from there. So now we know where to place our feet, where to place our hands. Let's have a look at the start position and at our back. Okay guys, got you at a side angle here. We're now going to look at the very start position. This is where most people will mess up the deadlift or put them in a position where they will not be pulling effectively. So when we're in our start position for the deadlift, there's two things that I'm looking for. The first thing is a vertical shin, because we do not want our knees in the way of the bar. So if I've got my shins come down, my shins are very much over the top of the bar like so, I've got too much pressure on my toes. The bar then has to travel forward to move around the knee, or I have to really pull my knees back, turning this into a very difficult Romanian deadlift, which is not what we're after. So again, what I'm trying to do is keep this bar traveling in a straight line, okay? Shins over the top is going to make that really difficult. Now, if you have a longer leg, it might just be a case of you're going to have slightly knees over the top, and you're going to have to work on your deadlift position to minimize the effect of that. The second thing that I'm looking for is that shoulders are in line with the barbell as I'm about to pull. Again, some people will have their shoulders too far over or too far behind. This will shift the center of mass. If the shoulders are forward, the center of mass is forward. So you're going to really feel that the weight may go through the low back, and that's when potentially you get too much low back strain. Or if the shoulders are behind the bar, what you might find, you start losing balance, you actually start stumbling backwards. Or again, have to stick your butt out, turn it into an RDL to counterbalance yourself. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab hold of the bar with the same foot and hand position we spoke about earlier. Going to grab hold, and then I personally like to start at a high hip. I'm going to take a deep breath into my stomach here, and I'm going to lower myself down until my shins are as vertical as I can get them. So that'll be here for me. As you can see, my shoulders are still over the top. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually going to shift my body weight backwards till my shoulders are in line with the bar. So this would be my start position. I can feel my quads very active, and I'm pushing through my big toe, my little toe, and my heel. So I've got a 3-point stance on each toe. That will keep me very balanced. And then we shall start the pull, which will look something like so. Now we have our start position dialed in. Let's talk about the pull. I like to break the pull down into two separate phases. You've got the first pull, which is from the floor to knee height. Knee height is going to be dependent on person and dependent on personal preference, but really you've got kind of three different spots. You've got below the knee, at the knee, which is going to be around middle of the kneecap, and you've got top of the knee. If I'm teaching a beginner or someone that's not deadlifted before or not particularly confident with deadlifting, I would say pull to the top of the knee. So that'll be your first pull. And then the lockout is going to be obviously from top of the knee up to a completion of the rep, okay? I like to break these two parts down because they have very differing techniques. And then obviously the goal will be to blend it all into one. So let's talk about the first pull technique. Now, of course, obviously doing exactly everything that we've already ran through. We're going to take our feet, we're going to take our grip. We're then going to get into our start position. And now, guys, what I'm looking to do here is just pretty much push the floor away with my feet. Think of it like a seated leg press position. So I'm just pushing through the ground with my legs until that bar reaches the top of the knees. Notice how my legs aren't excessively shooting backwards, so I'm not pulling myself back, leading to an RDL position. And I'm not moving my shoulders backwards or forwards. The shoulders are staying consistently above the barbell. You want to do this because this will put you in the best position possible for a lockout. Now, the exact same can be said in the sumo deadlift as well. It would be from pulling from the floor to above the knee to enable you to get the best chance of lockout. The second phase, as I mentioned, is that lockout phase. So that's going to be above the knee. So from here to the hips. Now, what a lot of people will do is just think continue standing up. What I want you guys to think about is extending at the hips, or imagine you're doing a high jump, or imagine you're doing a kettlebell swing, whatever it is. Because if we change our mindset to extend through the hips, what that will do is make sure that the hips and knees lock out at the same time. Again, avoiding the situation of whether we lock out the legs, lock out the hips, give you a little bit of a funky lockout, or vice versa. You try and push through the hips and then you get done for hitching. Unless, of course, you're into strongman, then that is allowed. So trying to lock out at the same time will lead to a more optimal lockout, making sure that we squeeze our bum as well. Another thing, a little pro tip, is that you do not need to lean back to make sure you finish the rep. Just finishing nice and tall is good enough, okay? So when learning it, I would recommend that you do pause deadlifts. So that would be a lift where you pull from the floor, obviously. You then go to top of the knee and then lock it out. So there's a distinct pause between the two lifts. Once you've then established the two techniques, you're very comfortable with that, you know what position at the knee that you prefer, then obviously start looking to blend it into one seamless lift. And there you have it, guys. That is my complete guide to the conventional deadlift. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like it, make sure you subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one.